Welcome to the Explainer. All right, today we're going to dive into some really powerful advice from Robert Greene, specifically for men trying to build that unshakable inner strength, especially now when the world feels more confusing than ever.
So let's just jump right in with the big question. In a world where all the traditional values seem to be fading away and the old rules, well, they don't really seem to apply anymore, what does it actually mean to be a strong man?
Here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll tackle the modern man's dilemma. Then, we're going to get into the difference between weakness and true strength. After that, we'll look at the virtues that make up that strength. And finally, we'll see how it all leads to a kind of power that actually lasts. So let's get into it.
So where does Greene even start with this? Well, he kicks things off by tapping into a feeling a lot of young men have today. That feeling that the world is just confusing. The old guideposts for what it means to be a man, they're just not there anymore.
And what does that mean really? Well, Greene argues that without a clear ideal to aim for, it's incredibly hard to know which way you're even supposed to go. It can leave you feeling completely adrift, kind of like you're lost at sea without a compass or a map.
Okay, so if we're going to find our direction, we first have to understand the huge difference between what our culture often shows us as strength and what genuine, deep-down strength actually is. We gotta unmask the illusion.
You know, a lot of people mistake this kind of behavior, bravado, for power. The bragging, the showing off. But Greene says, no way, that's the exact opposite. It's really just a loud performance trying to cover up some really deep insecurity.
Now this slide is where it gets really interesting, because this is where Greene just flips the whole script on what we think power looks like. On the left, you've got the illusion, right? The bragging, the fancy cars, the constant need to talk and be the center of attention. But on the right, that's the real deal. Quiet confidence, inner balance, letting your work do the talking. It's a total shift from loud external noise to a solid, quiet, internal foundation.
So, to make this idea of inner strength feel, well, real, and not just some abstract concept, Greene points to a specific person who he thinks totally embodied this quiet kind of power.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Cooper's power wasn't about being the loudest guy in the room. It wasn't about being pushy or aggressive. It was all rooted in this deep, quiet self-knowledge. He was just solid inside. He didn't have to prove a thing to anyone.
All right, so that's the ideal. But how do we actually build that for ourselves? You know, what does this look like in the real world, day to day? Let's get into the practical side of things.
And here's the crucial thing. These aren't just personality traits you're born with. No, these are active virtues you can actually cultivate. It's about having the strength to take criticism without your ego freaking out. It's showing respect from a place of genuine confidence. And it's letting your achievements, your work, be your voice instead of a bunch of empty bragging.
And Greene really drives this point home. He basically says that this quiet confidence has a massive effect on how other people see you. While insecurity is just repulsive, that true, genuine self-assurance is incredibly attractive to everyone, and especially to women.
Okay, so we've talked about the inner self, but how does all of this connect to the real world? You know, to your career, to actually achieving success that lasts, especially when everything feels so competitive out there.
Greene makes a really critical distinction here. There are two games you can play. On the left, you've got the short-term game, chasing quick money, showing off, maybe being a one-hit wonder. But the real goal, the path on the right, is the long game. It's about building a career that lasts for decades, like the athletes Greene looks up to. Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, guys who focused on total mastery, not just a quick flash of brilliance.
And this is the end game. This is what all that inner work actually leads to. It's what Greene calls true power. It's that point where you stop chasing things, and instead, your inner strength becomes this gravitational force that just pulls opportunities and people towards you.
Just let that sink in for a second. According to Greene, things like job offers, money, relationships, they aren't things you have to desperately go out and grab. Instead, they become the natural result, the byproduct of the deep internal power that you've built inside yourself.
All right, so let's just quickly wrap up the big ideas here. The path Robert Greene lays out is all about building that foundation of quiet internal strength. It's about choosing long-term mastery over short-term showing off, and creating a power that doesn't need to shout because it just naturally radiates from you.
And you know, it's really important to get this distinction right, because Greene is very clear on this. This isn't about domination or aggression, what some people call toxic masculinity. No, This is about a positive, constructive, and beautiful kind of inner power that actually benefits you and everyone around you.
So, in the end, all of this really just boils down to a question for you, personally. In your own life, right now, in these confusing times, what does inner strength truly mean to you? And maybe more importantly, how are you going to start building